Like we are live.
Good. All right, well, welcome everybody to the Planning and Parks meeting for today, Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. First meeting of 2025, so excited to be in the new year. So thanks for being here, and we'll start off with a roll call.
Chair Galani,
Here.
Councilmember Preston, Councilmember Crayons,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell, here, Councilmember Mabry,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon, Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
and we have a quorum.
Awesome. Well, we'll start out by, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from the committee's meeting of Tuesday, November 12th. I read them. 2024. A motion. Councilmember Mabry, got a second? Councilmember Crayons. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, minutes are approved. And next we've got public input. Do we have anybody here that would like to speak or online?
I have not received any speaker cards, and it does not appear that we have anyone online.
Okay.
But we do have people in attendance. I don't know if they.
Yeah, were you
want
guys here to speak? Oh, just watch. Okay, awesome. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. All right, so with no speakers, we'll move on to action items. And under action items, we've got planning matters first. We've got 5 items ready for consideration. And the first one is the preservation efforts in association with the Mary Cliff residents at Marianis Retreat Center in Ward 6. Director Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To all, thanks for being here tonight. We do appreciate it very much. First item relates to a discussion that's been ongoing with our Historic Preservation Commission for approximately 1 year. The Historic Preservation Commission was called out to the Marianis Retreat Facility because the Department of Planning received a request for demolition of the Mary Cliff residence. Mary Cliff residence has a long history that dates back well into the 1800s. Originally, the executive director that was in place several years ago had hoped to orchestrate a restoration effort of the building and make the building more friendly for families that are there for retreats. They have a more recent building, sometime in the 1970s, it was constructed. It's more of a dormitory setting. And the executive director was hoping to kind of create more of an intimate location for families that would want to do retreats at the facility. The facility is 115 acres in size, has a long frontage along the Merrimack River, and just has some great views from this particular area as well as to the south. That executive director also placed the property on the city's historic register, thinking that that would be the first step to being on the national register that's managed by the National Park Service, which does then avail grants and other funding tools to the property owners. The funding effort by that executive director didn't go as well as had hoped. He did raise a substantial amount of money, but it was even not enough to meet the restoration that had been planned. Ultimately, that executive director left. The executive director was hired, and the order, which is headquartered in Ohio, decided this was more of a liability than an asset. And fast forwarding now to that April 2024 visit to the site, the Historic Preservation Commission members met with representatives of the order that visited from Dayton, Ohio, as well as the demolition contractor, Alco. And obviously we took some photographs, one of which is on the screen. The discussion occurred. Historic Preservation Commission ultimately forwarded to the City Council a recommendation not to support the issuance of the demolition permit. Under our Historic Preservation and Restoration Code, there really is no provision to preclude the eventual demolition. Ours is a voluntary ordinance, and ultimately, if not on the local register, there's really not much other than just negotiation and options to explore that would keep it from being demolished. The order has been very patient with the city and the Historic Preservation Commission as we work through options, and those options are identified in the memorandum. Ultimately, it appears from at least the last conversation with the attorney that represents the order, they are at a point where they'd like a decision from our city council on their demolition permit. However, along with that request, they submitted 2 additional options which we had not discussed up to that point. One is to actually relocate the Mary Cliff residence, which is a substantial task. And I don't know if it's even feasible. The second is to purchase the property, either the city or some other entity. Entity would then be the subject of discussion about preservation of the Mary Cliff residence. Neither of those are very feasible options for the city of Wildwood. And the city of Wildwood, from via its Department of Planning, keeps trying to find local philanthropists that might be interested in actually taking on a challenge of this nature. That conversation or those conversations haven't reached the point where a decision is made. So tonight I am just presenting this to you. I suspect by the February meeting of City Council, I will report to you detailing the order's request to proceed forward with demolition. I would like more time. There are others working on this. St. Louis County Historic Preservation Commission has identified it as a primary historic asset. They have submitted a letter in support of the city's efforts to try to preserve it. It is on the list, the 2025 list of the Missouri Preservation Group as a top 10 endangered asset to be lost. So there is some publicity associated with it. Note that the city did not submit this property to that organization for that listing. We thought that would not be in good faith while we were doing negotiations with them. But as I say, we've kind of reached a point where the options that they've offered, that being the order, are far beyond, I think, what we can accommodate as a city in terms of funds. And we've not seen success yet by outside efforts other than the city. But I still hold hope that there is maybe a couple of individuals that might lend themselves to a project of this nature. So with that, I am just giving you an update, and I guess I would ask that if between now and the next city council meeting, there is some success with those 2 local individuals or others, that I'd be given an opportunity at least to present that to the order before the demolition permit is issued. I guess I'm asking for a little more time, not a great deal of time, a little more time tonight, if something were to turn up between now and the meeting, I believe, on February 10th. Mr. Chair, it's a sad story I have to present tonight, and I'm open for any questions. And really, from a standpoint of an action or motion, I just would say if there is progress by the February 10th meeting, I would hope the committee would endorse another month or 2 so we could see if we could make progress in a tangible way for the order. Thank you.
And thank you, Director Vunich, for the presentation. And is the timeline, as far as from the council and the city's standpoint, if we're able to say, hey, take another month or 2, is it really up to the order as far as are they the ones that are wanting a decision made sooner than later?
They are asking for a decision. In fact, before the end of last year, they were kind of almost, I guess, demanding one because they feel it's a liability. And obviously they are keeping the electricity and the heat on so that it doesn't deteriorate any further than it has. So there's a cost to them as well. But again, a point to them has been, if the decision is made now or in 3 months, once that decision is made and the work is complete, it's gone. And there's no way to restore it. So they've been patient, as I say, but I think their patience has reached a point where
So we're talking about another month or two, not
that's.
a year or something.
That's all.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Councilmember Franz?
If it costs us any money, I'm against this. It sounds like this has been going on for about a year then. Then I would say end it here. I wouldn't recommend going any further. We can't afford to buy this. So anyway, that's my blunt decision. I say no and let them tear it down.
Councilmember Mabry?
Chair Kalani, question of the director and then
Yeah.
propose a motion if no one else has
Sure.
questions. beforehand. Director, you mentioned that this one really had caught my attention. And appreciate the packet. I've gone through it of additional archival information. And I drove the site today. And I've been on the site previous years for other reasons. There are, of course, thousands of perspectives, and they're all going to be sometimes exactly opposite each other. But my perspective is that we are not flooded with a nuisance of too many landmark sites of this type dating back a century. And you made a point that's the biggest one that I've got to contend with against all the others. The Arter's conviction that this now represents a hazard for them, either liability for insurance or some kids breaking in and dying from falling down a floor that fell through. You shared with me that they've determined that even though they like to have the money from somewhere to be able to completely restore it to its former grandeur, they tried semi-seriously to pick up the $2.5 million that they thought it would take to restore it safely and incorporate it into their business model to go with their two-story barrack style dormitories for their clients to come and escape the world for a weekend. But the biggest but, once this is gone, it's gone till the earth stops rotating. And purchasing the 115 acres, they proposed that because they know how lunatic that is. They said we could relocate it free, and they proposed that because they know how lunatic that is. Driving the site, that structure is on the peak of a hilltop of a big draw on all four directions. It's the highest top of anything. You couldn't transport that thing 10 inches, much less move it far enough away to no longer be a nuisance, as they're calling it. I did ask in conversations today with the city if City of Wildwood, even though we don't have the funds, have we gone to St. Louis County or have we gone to state of Missouri? Have we put the arm on them for some sort of an interest enthusiasm level from them? I heard earlier, and you've confirmed that yes, you've picked up a line of dialogue, an initial one. You haven't been told hell no by St. Louis County. From what I understand, we haven't gone to the state yet. And I even was entertaining as another solution, as harebrained as it's going to sound, a public-private partnership with these owners. They're so afraid of it as a liability, as they keep claiming, and they cause the damage themselves when I went in and start pre-demolition processes before they'd been given a demolition permit. And that, of course, impacts the attractiveness of keeping it as a building. So if they can figure out how to damage it enough to make it a nuisance for everyone, then it makes tearing it down that much easier for them. I don't like playing into that. So here's what I came up with. Again, a public-private partnership, and that would be if we can garner the support of the state, St. Louis County, City of Wildwood, and if we go in and call their bluff that asset is Missouri's asset. It's the city's asset. It's the county's asset. You just happen to be the current owner. You're no longer a party of it the minute you sell the property. We gain enough attention the next couple of months, and I'm not at all worried about the next few months for the Marianists. They can try to make that a cause for action. Wonderful. They won't get a hearing in 3 months. But as crazy as it sounds, it's going to cost somebody some money. Nothing's free. But we contract with the parties we can get on board to perform the maintenance, upkeep, repairs, make safe that it takes to keep that structure intact and whole. And at such time that it's kept whole, whether it's 3 years or 30 years, hopefully not 30 years, the property will be sold, but it will be sold with that structure on it. And the new owners have that new structure to contend with as the buyer, as the new owner. They will get to meet the force of the state and the county and the city of Wildwood in coming up with either incorporating that asset into their building plan, whether it's 700 apartments or whether it's 3-acre McMansions along the river. But that's the most harebrained but most tenable proposal I can possibly make. So lots of questions otherwise, but I'd like to motion that we take minimum 1 month without a maximum number of months to aggressively investigate the state of Missouri and St. Louis County and what levels of participation. State might go 50%, county might go 30%, we might go 20%, and what it takes to bring the building back up, which the current owner has helped deteriorate, pulling up floors, defacing the fireplace, tearing out the heaters, other things that have been documented as having been done. And this was witnessed just last April when a site tour was made of this facility, and come to find out they're already in active demolition before they're even given a permit.
So your motion is to review your motion for us, if you would, please.
Certainly, thanks. It's to provide direction for the city, for the department, to aggressively investigate for at least 1 month, with no cap on the number of months, but for at least the next month, explore coming up with a PPP with the other entities I've mentioned. And then once we've decided on what the most economically realistic feature is, for us to take over the custody of the things that this owner is claiming is the liability and the reason that it must come down, when it must not, it doesn't must come down. It simply doesn't must come down. And that we would take at least the next month for the department to aggressively explore a partnership that saves that asset for Missouri and the county and the city. It's that simple.
So so the motion then is that we would give the department at least till the February 10th meeting of the Planning and Parks.
Actually, I'm reading it as that the department is given till the March meeting of city council to engage the state and county in terms of a potential partnership. If that partnership doesn't come to fruition, then a report would be prepared for the March meeting.
Okay, so that's the motion you're making, Councilmember Mabry. Do we have a second on the
No, I
motion?
have some
Yeah,
comments that might impact the
yeah,
motion.
go ahead then. Go ahead.
First, you're right, I feel like this was malicious destruction. Katie and I saw it. Scott, were you there at
No.
that tour? Yeah, it sounds like you were at that tour.
No, I took.
Well,
the
we
2
saw
months.
it firsthand and it was just, I was appalled, but
They haven't been
there's
taken
not
care of.
really much you can do at this point to correct some of those problems. What's more to the point is there's missing clay tiles from the ceiling in from the roof in certain places, so it's raining in there. And it's Anheuser-Busch was a master of this. Every time they wanted some more space, they would just buy some homes, leave the windows open and then it would rain in and they would rot and pretty soon they'd get approval to knock them down. And it's the same thing. But this is spectacular. You can, if you haven't seen it, there's no way for the photos to do it justice. It's just a gorgeous asset. As you mentioned, we don't have that many true historical assets of historical significance that are also as evocative and just plain beautiful as this building is. I would love to save it. There's an architect, John Gunther. He's an acclaimed, nationally acclaimed architect. Joe knows him well. He is a Catholic and he used to attend services in the chapel in there for years and years. He was not only appalled at the destruction himself, but he was also energized to go out and talk to what he felt were some pretty wealthy Catholic folks and people with the purse strings for the diocese and so forth that might be interested in helping out with that. And I don't know that we ever went anywhere because these guys they're catching them faster than they can string them every month and they don't have time to just run every rabbit. And so my question to you, Joe, is, my final comment first is, this doesn't belong to the state of Missouri. It doesn't belong to Wildwood. It belongs to these people unless it's on a registry someplace. And you've indicated that it's not. So we're limited as to the influence we can have on them. And we can't say it belongs to us because it really doesn't, even though in our hearts, it truly does. And so, Joe, can you clarify, number one, do we have any leverage of that nature? Like, can we claim that it's a public asset easily and cleanly, or does it take $1 million lawsuit? And then regardless of that answer, have you spoken to Gunther about his evangelism? Because that's kind of the public-private partnership that Mr. Mabry was talking.
It's a private building on private property.
Okay,
So the leverage we have is the issuance or non-issuance of the demolition permit.
which is voluntary. They can comply. They don't have to.
We can't, the way our regulation is written relative to the demolition of historic assets, those that at least 75 years or older, is that we can delay it a reasonable time to investigate.
Which we've done.
We're going, as I say, almost on a year.
Okay.
And that's why I think they're asking more so pretty much every month now about the status of the consideration by city council. So from that perspective, again, they've been very patient and they've given a lot of time, at least from my perspective, for us to explore options. And we've developed options. We've engaged them with those options. And again, the only two options I got back were, excuse me.
Unworkable, completely unworkable.
So, and then secondly, the last time I talked to Mr. Gunther, he was still reaching out to his network. Graduates from Chaminade.
Yeah.
That had attended retreats, attended services, been on the property extensively, trying to find a solution as much as us. I've investigated other options locally. And again,
No traction.
not yet. Not willing to throw in the towel. But the motion before you, instead of 2 weeks, 6 weeks, I would appreciate, I think at one point or another, we'll reach that if by March, that it's just not gonna work, or there is a glimmer of hope. And the glimmer of hope is sufficient, and I would hope the order would at least give us the time we need.
So one final push with sufficient energy to kind of bring all these together, ask Mr. Gunther and his cronies one more time and so forth, and it won't cost the city any money to Jim's point. And then we can just either say, okay, we have real hope here that we can preserve this asset, which I think is important, or, without having to spend any city money significant city money to do it. And otherwise, we'll just have to let them
It's the
knock
time
it
of
down.
Melanie and I trying to basically engage a couple of people. And that's the extent of our commitment over the next 6 weeks. Certainly, the department knows that funding is not set aside for this. And we wouldn't want to spend funds until there is a commitment, an agreement, and we don't have that.
So we're just talking your time then?
Yeah.
And it's 6 weeks, so we're not gonna spend any money or anything like that, but we're gonna kind of do the best we can, due diligence finally. So how do we reconcile that with Mr. Mabry's motion? Do we have to vote on that, vote it up or down? Or is there a way to modify?
Amended?
The motion was to give till the March council meeting.
So it's just the semantics of public-private partnership.
And we're
which
not
hoping
putting
to
that
do
as a
anyway.
final deadline. We're just saying as of right now, we're giving it till the March council meeting and.
Well, it could be, from my perspective, I think overarching all of this is we should follow the code and I think if the order were to say you're in violation of your code, I'd have to say, yeah, we've extended well beyond the periods. of
Yeah, I mean,
time.
this is basically a final. And then one question I had was, do we have a dollar figure on what the minimum amount we need to be to get to a sufficient, safe, whatever the minimal, there's probably a number that's to make it best case scenario, but then there's probably a number that would get it to the minimal level of acceptable tolerance to keep it going.
Fix the roof is the main thing.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's
I mean,
weather.
has there been any type of bids or anything like that to figure out, like if we're
Seen
talking to
anything.
a philanthropist, like what kind of dollar amount we're even looking for?
That there's been nothing in that tangible done yet. As I say, I was hoping, again, since it's a private building on private property, even if I were to have someone that would want to do an assessment and provide an estimate, I need the permission of the order, and the order has said, yeah, to date, we just want it removed. So I haven't had the access necessarily that someone would need. And certainly, this is first opportunity I've had to give it to the committee. Because if you as the committee says this is just a pipe dream, this isn't going to be something that's going to come to fruition, then we just need to proceed forward. But what I'm hearing is maybe one last, Hail Mary,
Yeah, I mean,
unintended.
Yeah.
but they would have to, for us to, even if you found somebody, they would have to be willing to donate the structure to the city or the state or the county or some entity other than themselves in order to have it fixed and managed.
I don't think they're willing to donate. I think the options are, you can have the building if you can get it off the property, which
Yeah.
I think is unrealistic. And the purchase, and that's the direction that surprised me a little. The Meredith Retreat Facility's been there for 5 decades or more. And the fact that they are willing to sell the property was a little surprising.
Have they thrown out a number?
No, they did not, and I did not ask, but it's 115 acres, so you're talking in the millions of dollars.
With a view.
Yeah, so,
It's the Catholic Church.
Exactly.
This is a huge building, but we know, we have satellite photos and we know the pitch of the roof and we know the square footage of the thing. We can get the number of squares required for a new roof and ask a couple of roofing contractors sight unseen what the ballpark figure is for the roof, because everything else is structurally, it's pretty sound. There might be some painting or something, but that's the number that we have to come up with to stabilize the structure. And so then the question becomes, are they okay with a stabilized structure that's not costing them any more than, I mean, it can't cost them that much to keep the pipes from freezing and keep the electricity on, I wouldn't think, and that buys
It's a
us
big building.
some time. So is that feasible at all?
Well, I had one conversation, and then via a memorandum I sent to the attorney, just to ask, what are you paying now to just maintain the structure in its current condition? That number, that cost per month or per year might give us an idea. That's something we could manage, or a group of individuals, local individuals could manage.
Yeah,
I
pay the
haven't
power
received-
bill,
Yeah.
pay the power bill and get the roof fixed. And then we've bought some time if they're okay with the, and there might be some real estate tax mitigation that we could effect.
Who's paying?
Religious
I've gotta
order.
think the size of
paying the
that
roof?
building.
Who's gonna pay for the roof?
Well, some of the people like, the Chaminade graduates and so forth that John Gunther knows, he really felt like he was
But I think-
connected.
I think they looked into that earlier and they couldn't come up with anybody.
Well, the former executive director had a grant planned for the rehabilitation and restoration, and that was that $3+ million plan. So no, I haven't looked at just, as I think Mr. Mayberry put it, make it save. That cost. I haven't looked into that. I can, certainly.
Well, here's,
Katie?
yeah, here's my concern. We already have St. Louis County that you're talking about going and getting money for this. When St. Louis County doesn't have enough money to do what they have to do just for basic services right now. So we will not be getting anything from St. Louis County. We have a governor's office that is pretty adamant about saving dollars every place that he can, as well as the president. So I don't see, as much as I hate to see this go, the reason it's in the state that it's in is because the Marionist group chose not to upkeep it. And while as much as I'd like to preserve this, I don't see how, even if we did the new roof, based upon conversations I've had with council members who have toured through it, there are portions of floors that are questionable as to being able to be walked on. There's window replacement that needs to occur. Just the cost for the HVAC to maintain it through the summer for a building of that size is going to be easily $1,200 to $1,500 a month. So I just don't see how we will be able to afford that as a city. And we don't have any partners that are going to be out there wanting to work with us on this.
We don't know those things.
Okay, you,
I mean, we don't know those things.
I won't knock down the,
He's asking for 6 weeks. I think we should give
Yeah.
it.
yeah, I'm not saying we can't. I'm just trying to be realistic.
Well, his original request was for 2, or up until the next city council meeting.
Well,
We got till, hold on, we got Councilmember Mabry and then Councilmember Rottenberg.
Yes, this is a 5% chance at something where we're on a path to 100% of nothing. And that'll be 100% of nothing forever. And there will always be those that chose a different tack that in just about a month after a final decision is made, they'll have said, well, nobody called, nobody asked us, we coulda, shoulda, woulda. There's 1,000 things that 1 million people could have come up with that may have provided for a potential solution. But we don't give Joe a minimum of 6 weeks, and that's why I never wanted to mention we'll make a decision at the March meeting, because the Marionists are gonna hold our foot to the candle and claim that we're guilty of a taking by delaying their decision that we promised on a Bible, we'd make it March. Now we want April because we've got some trail of interest from somewhere. Yeah, county's 20 million in the hole. Yeah, the state doesn't like spending money. They get to be party of the decision that they chose willfully to let any opportunity for any solution to ever take place forever. It's as simple as it gets.
I think the part though is that, we'll give it to March, the motion is to give it to the March council meeting, which I think is what we have to do, and I think to your point, we can't violate our own code, like we can't just indefinitely keep going because we're trying to find a solution for something even though they've
Just a point. I know that you're being cautious for us or something, but sure, it's taken a year. Does the code say we have to make a decision within 14 months of the first discussion, the first time of some issue before something? Or if we said minimum of the March meeting, we could decide that we're going to extend the minimum, not that we're going to delay the deadline. It's semantics, but it's important, it sounds like to me.
There are semantics associated with everything, obviously, but we visited in April 2024. The way the code reads is within relatively 60 days of that site visit, there needs to be a presentation to the commission on the request. The way the site visit worked out, that 60 days ended up being sometime in June, as I recall, last year. And then the department can extend it for another 60 days, which took us into the beginning of September. That's when the department then contacted the order at the direction of the Historic Preservation Commission and wanted to engage them in some negotiations, or at least exploring some options. And with their permission, we could delay it as long as they would allow. But we're through our scheduling and the 120 days.
When did they come back with their two lunatic proposals?
That was before the holidays.
Okay, and from that whatever date till the holidays, they stopped their own clock. The clock has now started, so it's not a year old. And if we're playing semantics, then they willfully chose to stonewall for 3 months and then come back with something they knew wouldn't fly.
I wouldn't characterize this as they stonewalled. I think they were patient and acknowledging the city's interest and gave us that extra time. But consistently, they've said that the demolition permit is their goal. They'll give us the time we've asked, but I think they realize that by the options they would accept and by comments I've made about the funding not being available through the city to make something like this a reality, I think they are at the point where they want us to make the decision so they know what their next step is. So Mr. Mayberry, I think we can bring this to a conclusion. My first steps would be to contact St. Louis County and the state of Missouri, at least acknowledge to them that we need their assistance. Is assistance an option? I would also then re-engage with Mr. Gunther and say, here's the timeline we're working under. If there is somebody out there that you know, or a group of people out there that you know, this is an opportune time for them to step forward. And then the two local entities, I've contacted one, I haven't contacted the other. I would reach out to them.
See what,
So.
Councilmember Rotberg?
I have a couple of concerns here. One, the Marionist Retreat has been a good citizen of this city. They have asked for permission to demolish this property. We've asked them to hold off for quite some time, to the point now where it sounds like we've tried their patience a bit. And so we're talking about another extension here in order to pursue some funding options to preserve this property, which in theory, I guess I don't have an issue with. But I'm thinking of a scenario where somebody like the county or the state would come back to us and say, well, yes, we can make some funds available, but they won't be available until November of this year. So then what do we do in a case like that? Do we delay
I mean,
longer?
I feel like the odds of us getting any public funding is as close to zero as you can get. Right?
Yeah.
It's gonna take a private person that's gonna come in and buy the whole 150 acre property and be willing to invest the money to make it a historic site and do that. I mean, that's the reality of what we're looking for. I think Mr. Gunther's the only option really, as far as if he's got any connections and anyone on the committee or on council that can reach out to anybody in the community that may have the capabilities of coming up with that kind of money. I think that's probably the only way is to buy because even if a public source was willing to preserve the specific structure, that doesn't help anything because you got to buy the whole property to do it. So even if they said, we'll give you 5 million to restore the actual building into its luster, it's as good as nothing because they're not gonna let us do it because we can't move the building off the premises. And so someone's gonna have to come in and buy the whole 115 acre property and then invest the money to make that site preserved and historic. So I think
The commitment.
my
I
thought
think,
is
would
give
have
it
to
the
be-
6 weeks till the council meeting in March, see if Mr. Gunther and anybody else within, and we could even maybe, I mean, I don't know how confidential these conversations have been with the Marionists. I mean, can we put it on the city's Facebook or website to say that, you know, we're trying to save this and make it historic if anybody knows anybody? I think all hands on deck if we're gonna try to do it within 6 weeks, but it's gonna take a private philanthropist with some deep pockets to come in and buy the entire property and be willing to do what we want them to do with it once they buy it.
Here, Lonnie,
Sure.
that's not my motion. I don't know who Mr. Gunther is, but there's nothing about the scenario that's a solution to anything in trying to buy the property. They've got a thriving business model, I'm told. They have no reason to want to sell the property. They haven't thrown a number out. And all we're going to do is waste our own remaining time, having them come back with a figure that's 3 times high, just so that we're forced to.
I know, but we can't go in, even if we came up with money, we can't go in and authorize ourselves to repair a structure on a property that we don't own.
It was, as I said to begin with, a means of shaming them and calling their bluff so that they are in a position of being forced to accept the fact that we're answering their issue, it being a liability. We're not answering their issue that they'd like to build apartments on that ground. We're not answering any other than what they published, which is that officially they're afraid of the building from liability and from safety. We
Yeah, and
answer
I'm-
those issues.
I'm not even saying, my personal opinion is that the only option is gonna be for someone to come in and buy the whole thing and repair it. That's my personal opinion. However, I think to your motion, we're giving Joe and the department 6 weeks to do whatever they can do under whatever premise they can to figure out a solution by whatever means that is,
Yeah,
right? To
just the
save the
last ditch
property.
effort.
So I was just giving my opinion on what I think would take to do it. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're voting on either giving them 6 more weeks to try to find a way to save it or approve the permit and let them take it down.
That's,
Worth a Hail Mary,
Yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing.
worth a Hail Mary, that's what
We're authorizing a 6-week Hail Mary.
So one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How would you measure a successful effort to save this structure?
the order saying that they've been contacted by an entity they believe may have appropriate approach, and that they would like the time to negotiate with that entity. So,
It will be a developer is who it's gonna be.
and that may be the case. As we see often, the Catholic Church, they sell properties to offset their expenses these days. And so from that perspective, that may be an option. I'm certainly not going to be the one who calls a home builder and says this is available. Not my place as your director of planning and planning. But if there is someone out there that is willing to consider a preservation effort, and there are a couple people in town that have done this, and they've done it on a large scale. So those are the people I want to contact. Contacted one of them, said he needed more details. I'll get those details. But certainly, I think overshadowing all of that is the fact that we have a code that says this. And you have charged me with the responsibility to enforce our codes. And so that's why it's here tonight. I think the best I can offer is within 6 weeks, I can engage the state, I can engage the county. I can get with Mr. Gunther, make sure his group understands we're under duress in terms of time. If there's anything they can do, they need to do it now. And the two local individuals, I'd like to at least talk to them one again and then introduce the concept to another.
If nothing would be forthcoming in that 6-week period, then what would we do?
I would prepare a report saying nothing is forthcoming and that I would request the authorization to proceed with the issuance.
Okay. I think we've had a pretty robust discussion at this point. It's either you want to give Joe 6 weeks or not, so it's pretty much cut and dry.
So do we have a second for that, or will that?
His
is
motion
that
was to
workable?
give-
Is that- Will that work? Will that motion work?
Yeah, his motion was to give the department 6 more weeks till.
I'll second it
meeting.
then.
I said minimum,
Oh.
but I'll go with whatever the
Jim seconded
the
it.
chair.
Didn't you
I mean, you can say minimum if you want to
No,
put
no,
that in
no.
there.
Go ahead,
I
make
see,
the
I
second.
see,
Yeah, I'll second the.
I think
6
Joe's
week.
just looking for 6 weeks.
I see,
Do or
I
die.
see little risk of the Marionettes taking this as a cause for action if we don't decide at the March meeting. They may threaten to make this a cause for action and threaten to sue us for violating our own code. But then they'd have to file for that action. They'd have to proceed and sue us.
Yeah,
And
well,
that will take until July anyway.
okay, well, we'll do the motion of minimum of to March. And then you can give us a report at that time on what your thoughts are and go from there.
It's a small
Yeah.
thing, but as Martha Stewart said.
No, I
it's an
just
important thing.
The 150
You second the motion.
Yeah, I did.
Second, so we've got a second. I think we've discussed it.
Yeah.
Pretty good. So at this point, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose.
One opposed, Councilman McCrans, any abstentions? All right, motion passes. You
Thank
get your
you.
6 weeks.
So 115 acres times 50 grand an acre. That's less than 6 million. If each of the 6 of us can kick in $1 million apiece, we can buy the damn place.
Yeah, thought you'd never ask.
Well, Rob, that's pocket change for you, man.
I want to put an amusement park there. Six Flags is too long of a drive. for that type of
Oh,
thing.
I want a trailer park.
That doesn't follow our code.
Just so you all know, we do have the 5th land use category in the master plan, historic. And we did talk to the order about the fact that if you preserve the Berry Cliff residence, there could be some options in terms of zoning and subdivision incentives in the future. If you come to a point where you do sell it. to
It's
a-
just gonna take somebody with the diligence to do it, and that's why I keep mentioning Gunther, because I don't know what kind of time he has, but he knows all of those things, right? Yes, so.
Cool. All right, that takes us to the next item on planning matters.
You need to speed it up a little bit.
Yeah, you guys are killing me over here with this. We're only on
I
item
say that's
one.
enough.
I'll do my
Yeah.
best.
All right, it's Turkey Track roadway improvements in the Murgan Temple in Ward 1. Director Budick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, and members of the committee, the 3 gentlemen that are in attendance tonight are part of the leadership team for the Murgan Temple, and they've been working with the city through the planning process. We've reached the point in that planning process where yesterday I sent them a very, very short list of comments, adding just a couple of details to the site development plan package, as well as just addressing a couple of smaller items. They are on the verge of having their plan approved. One of the items that we've been discussing almost since day one is Turkey Track Road. The image that Melanie kindly put on the screen for us to see tonight represents Turkey Track Road. Through the development of the community college and Meadows at Wildwood, the city has acquired 60 feet of right of way, almost the frontage that now is owned by the temple and its leadership. That frontage, your minus is shown by the black hatched area. The temple, they require to do improvements along their frontage for the purposes of egress and utilization of the property. The rest, as defined by our code, are off-site improvements. And the conversation that the leadership of the temple and the city have been having relates to those off-site improvements. If the temple develops as planned, which could have a substantial amount of membership or congregation size, Turkey Track Road is substandard for those purposes. At best, it's a 1.5 lane roadway that terminates at Route 109 with a right out only and intersects Generations Drive, which we know is serving Meadows of Wildwood, the St. Louis Community College Wildwood campus, Wildwood Square, the commercial development, and Wildwood Family YMCA. So obviously, we're adding more traffic to a roadway network in that quadrant that has already drawn complaints relative to staging, timing of the lights, et cetera. So the department had asked the temple leadership to make improvements to the entirety of Turkey Track Road, which goes beyond their frontage, obviously. And their request was, can the city partner with them on some of these improvements? We have a set of plans that now have been finalized. We are developing an estimate But tonight I'm presenting to you their request for partnership to complete the necessary improvements to Turkey Track Road so as the temple can function at a safe level in the opinion of the department, but also to improve a street that provides our only emergency access into the area if New College Avenue or Route 109, its intersection with New College Avenue would become untenable due to accident, blockage, or some other kind of emergency. I don't have a cost component. One of the representatives from the Temple May for the entirety that is being worked on at this time by our Department of Public Works. Suffice to say, under our code, we can only require improvements along their frontage at this stage. The remainder would have to be a partnership, or if we feel it's necessary, not proceed forward with the issuance of a permit until such time we have a solution to what is, I consider, a substandard road at this stage. So tonight I'm seeking direction from the committee on what is the best approach to proceed forward with at this time.
Councilmember Krantz?
So is this a private road we're talking about?
It is a public street.
Okay,
As it's in our right of way through the dedications.
so we would contribute to construction of part of it,
That is what the temple is requesting.
and if it's ours, that's something we should do.
Again, the temple has gone back and forth between developing the temple itself as the first component, first phase of the project, or doing the priest quarters with a meeting space as a component of that, which is a much smaller footprint. If they were to do the priest quarters and the meeting space, I think the existing Turkey Track would be functional. They do the full temple. I think there's concerns about just overwhelming the street and creating an unsafe circumstance.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go along with what you recommend here. As long as we're doing what we're supposed to do with our public money. I don't want to spend public money on something we shouldn't.
Well, this is not a priority road improvement. It's not on our current 2025 capital improvements
Okay.
program, and it's not in our 5-year plan. So as I say, we're kind of in that between a rock and a hard place. We have a use that will add traffic. We have a situation with a substandard road, and I don't feel that necessarily the department can tell the temple leadership they can't move forward with their project based upon road conditions.
But wouldn't you think they would know that on their site plan?
They do, and they say that, given they meet on Sundays, as I recall. During the week, it's a limited utilization, so their feeling is when the area is busiest during the week with the community college, the YMCA, et cetera, they won't be there. But they will be there on Sundays when the community college isn't in session, and typically the business is open late and its traffic patterns are light.
So they get traffic from the community college?
Yes, some of the students actually come down south on Generations Drive and exit and go south toward Eureka. Some make the illegal left turn, which is taking their lives at risk, in my opinion.
But we have a public right of way on it.
Yes, we have a 60-foot wide.
Well, I'm for the public property, not for the private property. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, the intent of the department is not to spend any of the taxpayers' dollars on their frontage. It would
Okay.
be to assist in making Turkey Track an acceptable 2-lane road.
Okay. And that will involve public funds?
That unless the temple has changed their position and is willing to do the entirety of the improvement to Turkey Track Road without the assistance of the city. And last time we talked, they were not.
And we don't know the cost yet.
Not yet, but I can have that cost in a short period of time, probably by the next committee meeting.
And they're refusing to share their cost?
They are willing to do their frontage, and that's the
half.
obligation under our code.
Okay.
This is similar to another discussion we had last week, or last week. Couple of questions. Number one, as you stated, this isn't in our budget anywhere. Number two, we have no clear understanding of the traffic impact because we have not done a traffic study on Saturday and Sunday as to the amount of traffic that turns in onto Generations Drive and come either to the community college or these houses. So I think it foolish on our part, quite honestly, that we would expend any funds until we do some traffic studies that assess what's going on there after they do their build out. Just like we did with the community college, we didn't know exactly how many cars were gonna come in and out, et cetera. And there's peak times and there's low times, so I don't understand why we would want to invest in this at this time when we haven't budgeted for it and there's another way to get in and out of this facility. My real question though is, looking at this, on the south side of the road, are those people's homes that are gonna be impacted by widening that road and cutting through behind their homes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I'm seeing about
we
6 or 7 homes there.
we
No, 1, 2, 3.
Required the developer of Meadows and Wildwood to dedicate the right of way. The homes weren't yet.
Yeah. Mhm.
So we did set them back from the edge of the proposed right of way. So
Okay.
they are compliant, but yes. There is some work that would occur on the south side of Turkey Track Road. We tried to push all of the improvements we could to the north. That's why you see the trail connection
Okay.
to the north. So
Okay.
as we could, at best, limit the impact on those homes as much as possible.
Okay. That's what.
But yes, it's not a budgeted project, but at the end of the day, you as city council members and representatives, in this case, one of you of this particular ward, you need to be aware that if all else fails, the departments will sign the site development plan and allow the project to proceed forward with the road as is. And I don't want you to think that the departments aren't being conscious of safety and function. But the code just doesn't give us the tools to require off-site improvements at this time.
Okay. Did any of you gentlemen that are here want to say anything in regards to your position or?
Originally, when we started this project, we were going to design the street improvement to city standards. And that was a requirement that we had to do, and we accepted that under the premise that city is going to participate in sharing the cost of the road improvement or fully funded. I mean, we were hoping it will be fully funded, but at least participate in the cost of the construction. But the design, we agreed to do it on our own. So we spent $20,000 on designing the street. And now we were hoping there'll be some sharing of the costs. And we do have costs, but we don't have a separate cost just for the Turkey Track Road improvements alone. It is part of our whole development, site improvement plan. But we can try to break it out and then get the costs. I mean, you don't have to go solicit bids again, since we already got bids.
Certainly, if there's no objection on the committee, them breaking out the costs, at least we know if we want to program it in the next 5 years, at least we have a starting point then.
Yeah, that would be helpful, but.
Yeah, we would need it. Councilmember Rambo?
Yeah, there's a lot here. Ingress and egress to Turkey Track is only southbound on 109, and it's gonna be that way forever because MoDOT does not want to put in another light or a roundabout or anything like that. Is that a true statement?
On the side of that hill.
It's
Yeah, no, it's restricted. You're right. Yeah, Katie's right.
It's on the.
Be hard to
on the
do.
Flank side, so to speak, of the
Uh-huh.
hill crest.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's on a curve, a long curve, and sight distance.
So dangerous.
Sure. So that's, I already knew that part. We've explored it with MoDOT and it's just not gonna happen. And so that was always gonna be a problem. The Meadows folks probably use it to go to Eureka sometimes and maybe to come into their property. But I think the traffic on Turkey Track is modest, but the traffic at the light is horrendous sometimes. I just don't know if it's horrendous on Sunday. And if they
It's
just wanna
not.
put if they just wanna
I
put
go over
a
to the
priest's
Y on
residence
Sunday.
or something like that there, it's gonna be a handful of cars a day. I think that would be, I mean, we don't really need to improve the road, but if they have a full-blown temple there, there's gonna be a lot of cars and we have to consider safety. I don't think we need a full-blown two-lane road improvement, but we do need to figure out the constriction at the highway and do some safety improvements there. I just don't know what those are, but no matter what we do, the people in the Meadows are gonna be upset because they're already upset. I see Teresa is on here and she and I have talked about it a lot. She has looked into it a bunch and she wants to support the temple, but has also gotten feedback from a lot of neighbors that say, it's already horrible, you're gonna make it more horrible. And so we need to be real careful about this. And I think the first thing is somebody suggested a traffic study. We need to figure out how many cars we're talking about. And I don't know is there a way for us to have a legal trigger or something like that? If the traffic in 5 years is 100 cars an hour and it used to be 10 cars an hour, then suddenly somebody has to pay for the improvements and it's not us? I mean, is that a possibility?
Well, Ms. Dowell accurately represented that when the community college proposed the new building,
Uh-huh.
we did do an update of the
Yeah.
traffic analysis. The ownership by the temple of the property was acknowledged as part of that. I don't remember the outcome. That's something I apologize for, but we knew that the temple owned this property and did have an ambitious 5-phase program to develop it. And so there may be some information there that I just didn't include, and I apologize. But for the purposes of tonight, I wanted you to know that we are very close to proceeding forward with the site development plan. I don't know if the temple's made a decision. Is it the temple or is it the priest quarters with meeting space is the first phase? That obviously may affect our decision making. Have you reached any conclusion?
So, yeah, even we start with our main temple or the priest quarters, it is not going to be full-blown temple immediately. As you know that, we are working on fundraising. So we're going to start with a smaller size. And then the other thing I wanted to update you all, the gentlemen here is, the Hindu temple or the Murugan temple operation is not going to be similar to the churches. Like, all the people will come at the same time to the congregation, and then this is like a gradual, people come and worship and go on their own timing. So it is not going to be a mass traffic on a particular time. So Sunday, it's going to be like a little more, like maybe 50, 60 cars come on the particular day. Then the weekdays, maybe in the morning 5-10 cars, and the evening 5-10 cars to the temple. That's our expectation.
The services are a continuous thing. It's not one time.
One time.
So the folks that want to attend services are probably going to be more in a better mood to just wait a couple minutes in traffic than the folks that live in the Meadows. And what we really do is we owe it to the existing folks that live in the Meadows to not further negatively impact their access. That's what we're trying to work out here. And the city doesn't have any money for this road. It wasn't in our budget. So we gotta work all that out. And go ahead, Katie.
Is there any reason that we cannot let the gentlemen proceed with their development without these road improvements? I mean,
That
we
is,
don't know what the traffic patterns are gonna be.
that is the intent of the department, is to sign the site development plan, improvement plans, and let the project proceed. If I heard correctly, they are looking at just the police quarters and meeting space as phase one, which does give us some time to program in improvements to Turkey Track Road before phase two, which I would assume now would be the temple.
Because even right out, I don't appreciate in that location. I would just assume we cut off that road 100%. I've seen cars down on the side of the hill.
Yeah, the ingress egress to 100,
Yeah,
you're,
yeah.
or 100, 109, you're exactly right. I
Yeah.
think that's what needs to happen.
We changed
spur.
things between their facility and
Yep.
where that existing stoplight is to improve traffic flow or something.
The fire
Do away
department would
with
like
the-
that though, because they don't
I
like.
think the fire department is the key component here,
Yeah.
just keeping it, even if it isn't necessarily set up for their purposes, it does provide a second ingress point to get to the community college and other locations.
Well, then you can,
What about a
then you can
gate, like,
throw
right-
blacktop over it
Well,
and you can put a fence like we have on Turnberry and they can plow through it if they have to come through to deal with any fires on that end
When we,
and save us a lot of money.
prior to the Meadows of Wildwood, this was a full access intersection. It just served several large lots that
Mhm.
had single-family dwellings on it. So when we did make the change to a ride-out only, it went through MoDOT's review. So I feel comfortable that people don't make left turns or into it. It's fair, it'll function as we hope
But they will.
that they do, and they will. But again,
Can't fix stupid.
from the department's perspective, if the phase is the smaller of the five, which it appears that what has been said tonight, I think we have time. When I last met with the leadership of the temple, they weren't sure. You know, they're in a fundraising mode. They need the site development plan to prove to their congregation, their membership, that they actually have a project. And that's what that's our goal. And we're so close now. Just so you know, I've sent the new plans over to the president of the homeowners association at the Meadows, so they have those. We've kept in communication. Like I say, it's just a tough situation, and I just wanted you to know that we've tried our best, but I think at this stage, we just don't have the funding to do the partnership.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Quick observation. So this is two horses in a row we've beaten to death, but my question to you is,
Getting me out of the gate here in January with a terrible record.
trying to ruin your record. What improvements are required, given that it's a low speed, southbound in and out only? What kind of improvements do you think we need? I mean, do we just need to widen it 4 feet so that we can put a stripe in the middle and have two-way traffic, or what are you contemplating?
Obviously, at their frontage, they're going to build a commercial access, so to speak.
Okay.
So as there's appropriate radius for larger vehicles, trucks, trash trucks, et cetera. And maybe potentially some tapers, just so that, things grade out appropriately. The other part was just a
They're doing that,
widening.
I'm sorry, they're doing that on the south end here?
Where
the hash marks are,
their
right?
access is.
Okay.
Other than that, yes, it was to widen it to a full 2 lanes, so it could be striped. And then we asked for a pedestrian facility, because during special occasions at the location, they park over at the community college, walk across Generations Drive, and then come down to the facility. So the thought was, we have sidewalks on Generations Drive. If we could get a pedestrian facility on the north side, we have safe access for the pedestrian.
Or those for the folks wanting to access the temple, which
Yeah.
means they probably ought to pay the freight for that, and if we can get that done and widen it the 4 feet or whatever is necessary at some reasonable cost, maybe that's the solution.
We don't have a reasonable cost because we have no funds. So 0 is not a reasonable.
Okay, yeah, okay, sure.
What's how long is the roadway?
Oh, I want to say it's probably, there's 7 lots, they're probably on 40 or 50-foot width, so maybe 280 to 350 feet.
Oh, okay, well,
Yeah, Councilman Rottenberg?
So I guess the question I would ask, since we've already discussed this, we don't have the funds for this in the budget for this year. So we're looking at next year before we could actually realistically do something.
At the earliest.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so in your opinion, what would be the issue with us doing, as Councilmember Dodwell suggested, just closing the exit off in such a way that there would be some type of barrier there that the emergency services could just bulldoze through so that they have that alternative entrance into the area should an emergency occur?
Well, I think we can do that regardless of the temple, because again, Turkey Track Road is a city street, Route 109 is a state right of way. And I think the key component in all of this is talking with the community college, the YMCA, the Meadows of Wildwood Square, and the fire district, and saying, we're thinking about closing that access off. And get their opinions. So certainly we can explore that. But
Okay.
that would be regardless of the temple, because
Yeah,
the temple
Right.
can function without that
Yeah.
access.
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, because I don't want them to be held up.
It wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And they could also reapply the funds that would go to their improvements, their commercial frontage to the sidewalk and the widening of the road, and everybody wins, right?
Well, they'll still need a new access. Because right now, there's a bit of a hill,
Okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
sure, right.
and we've got to level that out, so, and obviously it needs to be widened, so there's so that obviously a trash
Right,
truck
right,
can get
right.
in, and any larger vehicles, and it just needs to be safer. So they're gonna build their access.
So are you looking for a motion from us, Director Vunich?
The motion I was
He's got a
anticipating.
question.
was-
You know, and like you said, during the weekdays, it's going to be sporadic, few cars. And weekends, like you said, it's not at one set time, it's going to be open from morning to whatever, people come in, drop in and go. So it's not going to be concentrated traffic at a particular time.
Sure.
And moreover, the usage of the road is more usage will be done by the community college and the retirement community, and maybe even for the YMCA.
Yeah,
Because our usage compared to all of them is going to be limited.
Yeah.
So if it's a private road, I can understand we bear 100% of the cost. But since it's a city-owned public road and there other people are using it, I will kindly request you to participate in funding, at something.
Sure,
It's a
yeah.
kind request, so please consider that, yeah.
yeah, so we would have to get it in the budget, but what I was gonna say is to the point that's been brought up regarding closing that access to the 109, right? Because it's only a right-hand turn anyway. If we blocked it off, now you've eliminated all the traffic from the YMCA and the community college and the Meadows, because they're gonna take generations, right? And so now the only traffic on Turkey Track would be for the temple, right? And then it's closed off, and then, because the problem I see too is if you widen Turkey Track, you're just inviting more people to use it. And now you've dramatically increased the safety issues at the
Yes.
ingress egress onto 109. We're already concerned with the number of people that illegally make left-hand turns out and right-hand turns in. That's only gonna go up 5x, 10x, whatever X. I mean, you widen that road, you're just telling more cars to come down that road. And however number of people are illegally making turns now, it's gonna be X times
That's why I
whatever.
was saying. we
So
need
if
to
you
see a
close it
traffic
off,
study.
There's no need to widen it. And then the walkway component, it's a safe street because the only people that are using it are the temple, right? There's not any other public traffic coming through there. So now it's still a city street, but you've in effect turned it into a private street more or less. And now everyone uses generations to get out to New College to go to the light. And it's a much safer environment. Yeah.
Yeah, my thought was, they can save a lot of money on their frontage if we do it that way, because Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't need 150 feet there in front of the temple any longer because we've closed off the access. And so all we really need is to upgrade the existing western end of Turkey Track to 2 lanes and put the sidewalk on it, which is completely for safety and access for the temple. And then it is truly for their use and it makes sense for them to do it. Is that a reasonable, what am I missing?
For the most part, all we were asking the temple do along their frontage is improve their access into and out of it, that commercial access point. And that would extend out in either direction a short distance. As you can see, as you go toward Route 109, we didn't have them widening it out.
Okay, so we weren't having them do any actual road, we weren't making it 2 lanes.
No, because again, we're going into just a single
see.
lane
Okay,
that
okay,
goes
okay, I
right
misunderstood.
south on Route 109. So again, if the temple had said that their intent is to build the large worship facility, then I did have a request for a motion. Under their statement tonight that they're doing the priest quarters and meeting space, I think all I'm doing now is just telling you we're pretty close to approving the plan, unless there's some kind of objection to that.
I'm for what Mike said and Katie said.
Yeah,
Go ahead and
Yeah, why don't you have
investigate.
those conversations with the other parties
yeah.
and let
Go
them
ahead
know?
and take
'Cause
care of that.
I think that's something that would fix everybody's.
I don't
So
need
they
a
can
motion.
No,
for that.
no.
We'll go ahead and proceed forward and contact our partners in that area and see what they think of a closure
Yeah.
in terms of safety purposes, and then go from there.
Right.
We'll report that to the committee.
Good, all right.
We want to
Here.
let them continue.
Sounds good. All right, thank you, gentlemen, for
Yes.
joining us this evening.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone. Thank you for coming in. Yeah.
All right, now that leaves us with 5 minutes per item for the next. All right, so that takes us to the next item, which is a trash enclosure redesign for City Hall.
As you know, we removed the existing trash enclosure that was constructed as part of City Hall. Temporarily, we've moved the trash dumpsters down to the end of Wildwood Avenue. The intent would be to build an enclosure around that. Respect Ken Keitel designed a simple enclosure. His estimate was $27,500. I would like to go ahead and bid it and see if we can beat that price substantially. He is very conservative. He even mentioned that. And I'd like to see what the bid community would think and then come back to you with that. So I would request authorization to proceed to the next step and see.
Need a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
Scott will, and I'll
We got
second
a
it.
second. All right, any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, you got
Just
your
so you
motion.
know.
It's 2 minutes or less.
Take no steps until such time, whatever we get, we bring back to you and get.
Okay, sure.
Excellent.
Quickly, who made the motion and seconded it?
Councilman
Scott,
Rottenberg
and
made the
then-
motion, Councilman Rambo second.
Perfect, thank you.
Because I spoke up and cut Rob off.
And everybody,
You guys were fair to keep around.
Teamwork.
yep, all right. Next on the planning matters is the Veterans Memorial in Wildwood, which is All Wars, Ms. Ripto.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Okay, so in 2022-ish, the city started having conversations about the hometown hero banners and this brought up other things such as the Wall That Heals, as well as other veterans programs, and realized that we were lacking in some capacity of veterans programs. And since then, the department was asked to look into other veterans memorials in other cities, and the department presented the committee with some of the surrounding cities and what they had as far as veterans memorials and parks, and it was very well received. And we were going to look into getting a veterans memorial, and decide on a park and all of that, but it's a big undertaking and also quite costly. And so that being said, it's been on the not ready for action list for quite some time. That being said, the city has focused on other things. We had our very first Veterans Day event this past year, and it was very successful. And in the process of doing that, in trying to determine where we were gonna have it in the building. We ended up having it in the lobby out here, but we'd also talked about bringing it down to council chambers. And the city administrator pointed out this very long hallway that we have here that is quite bleak, you know, and just walking down it. And he was talking about potentially getting some sort of plaque or something to put our veterans' names on. And so in the process of looking into that, one thing led to another, and you don't really want like a plaque that, you know, how do you have it, you know, engraved, you know, you get so many names on it and then you have it engraved, which then doesn't get the immediate gratification of, you know, getting names as we go. And so it led me to look into better ways of handling that and kind of came to the whole thought of maybe we can combine these two things. Maybe we don't necessarily need a Veterans Memorial in one of our parks. Maybe we don't need this big, you know, sculpture or, you know, a big park thing. And so we were talking about it and came up with kind of like this hall of heroes, you know, or hallway of heroes. And that way it would be decorative. It would be an entrance into our meetings. People would see it. People that arrive early could, you know, on their way in, stand, look at it. And it would also open up the option of doing something bigger that doesn't look empty, you know, rather than a bunch of plaques with names on it that could look quite empty along the way. And so we started looking into things like this. And there's a ton of different options. Most of these are custom designs and you can do it in shapes. You can do, this is kind of what got me there. They do have like the American flag, which honestly, I'm not crazy about that myself. But for our veterans program, we did order military seals that are wooden and they were quite lovely and did a presentation of them out there. Can't see it real well on the screen here, but I also came across these fantastic trees where the leaves are you can have engraved with individual names and rank. I mean, we keep it minimal as to what was on there and it could be treated. So a lot of these are also expandable. You know, you can start with one tree, you can start with whatever, and then by expansion, you know, as it's needed. But it also comes with all of the leaves or all of the little plaques on it and you take them off to have it engraved so you don't ever have that, you know, tree with 30 leaves on it kind of look to it, that very empty feel that we were trying to avoid. And then we could also use some of the things that we have military flags that we did have displayed up here, you might have seen. And then those were the plaques that we had ordered. But those could also be incorporated into it. Like it wouldn't just have to be, you know, the sign. And while I was talking to one of the sign companies, they sent this over, not necessarily for the flag design, but for the wallpaper behind it. Because you can do wallpaper that has like photographs of the city or, you know, something along the lines to like fill the space behind it if we wanted to go that route. But there are all kinds of options and all kinds of things that can be added to it. This could also potentially start on one side of the hallway and, you know, maybe end up on the other side. It can be expanded as much as we'd like, but the thought behind it was that it could also address another one of the issues that might come along if we have the Wall That Heals come visit Wildwood, because with the Wall That Heals, people tend to come leave things behind. And then it's the city's job to figure out what to do with all of those things that were left behind. And we had talked about maybe incorporating it into a Veterans Memorial or something like that. But that's challenging if the Veterans Memorial is outside in a park, you know, like incorporating that somehow. And so they have these, you know, they're kind of like box frames and such, or you can also do like a full build out of like glass, you know, and we could use that to display, you know, those things left behind at a later date if that becomes, it just opens up a lot of avenues and such. And so that being said, again, we are having budget constraints and it isn't currently budgeted for, but there are grants available that we were looking into. We'll see how grants available goes, but yeah, the Missouri Humanities Grant, they have two different grants. One is a mini grant and it's up to 5,000 and there is a match on that. And then they also have a larger grant that is 5 to 15,000. From what I've found out from the companies that do these type of signs, they start off at $5,000 and can get really, really expensive, like up to $50,000, depending on the materials, the size, what all the components that go with it. But that being said, starting between $5,000 and $15,000, and if we had a grant that covered half of that or so, it becomes less of an expense and also significantly less than doing, a full memorial in one of the parks. And so it becomes a more realistic option sooner than later. We also acquired a bunch of names from one of the veterans events. We had them fill it out. And so we do have, I think it's around 50 names of veterans between that and our Hometown Heroes program that we could start off with. And then we could either go into sponsorship kind of situation like we do with the Hometown Hero banners and, start off with our first few, but then after that, have people, sponsor similar to our other memorial programs like the benches or the bricks and stuff like that, to cover the cost of it.
I got a question. Can
I got Councilman Rambo and then I got.
Oh, okay.
Are you done? Go
I'm.
ahead, continue.
Yeah, you guys are
I
jumping.
just wanted to jump the gun here.
Yeah, so same.
Just wrapping it up. I mean, honestly, like that's essentially what we're presenting to you tonight, and what the department's looking for is, to see if you have support in moving forward with this type of option for now. And if we wanted to do a more memorial in the park at a later point in time, we could always do that. But this would be more of an immediate gratification type.
I think this is good work. It's a great idea. It helps us get a respectful veterans memorial, and it's a reasonable cost. And that hall is dismal currently. And so I think it's just a win. And so my question to you is, it costs $3,000 to wrap a vehicle with garish graphics, and I'm wondering what it would cost for an entire wall to kind of look like the one you had, the background, the wallpaper background. And we could do that for one part of the wall, and then we could do those shadow box things on the other side, and we can have a tree for the veterans. And so all of that, we don't, I'm champagne taste on a beer budget maybe, but that doesn't sound like it would be terribly expensive, and I would like to know how much it costs so that we can just kind of choose, and then someone more artistic than myself could lay it out and make it be just really nice and really impressive. And if we, decide to do one of those shadow boxes, I'll buy the first one. Because folks, I think there are other folks that would be happy to do that as well. So that's my thing. And if we need discussion first, that's fine, but otherwise I would make the motion to go forth and get us some pricing and figure it out.
Okay.
Okay, so we got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Got a second, Councilor Dow? I got Councilor Cranston, then you, Councilor Hopper.
So are we gonna honor the soldiers that were killed in action, or are we gonna honor all the vets? We're gonna have a section for those that lost their lives and people that served.
I have a hard time turning away vets, period.
Right.
I'm
We can
just
make
asking.
those decisions later as to whether we're gonna have a separate section for them.
So we'd have to incorporate that in a design.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
well,
suggesting, somebody better than
Yeah.
us could do.
I'd love this American flag option. I think that
I was gonna
better
say,
than trees.
the leaves, a lot of the companies offer different colors,
Yeah.
like they're all metallic, but it's bronze, the silver, the one. And so you could differentiate that way. I also did see one city where they had leaves on the ground for those people that fell during action. And so I've seen different ways of interpreting it, but again, those are
I
all
think
Different.
you hit it.
Can we do cops and firemen too?
um
That makes a lot of sense to me because they, they deserve equal recognition. We could have a separate part of the wall or something like that for them. I think it would
First
be
responders and
a show of, gratitude for the cops in the building.
Councilmember
We put
Rattenberg?
those kind of-
I've got I guess a couple of questions here. Do you have any veterans in the room?
6 weeks, it doesn't, 6 weeks, but that doesn't count. That's
I guess I'm just
that's a
wondering
great story.
What the average veteran thinks of this type of memorial.
Good feedback from them.
So, while we were having our veterans event here, we had the veterans fill out a card. And it was to be recognized at a later point in time on a veterans memorial of some sort that, you know, to be determined kind of situation. But I chatted with a lot of people while they were here, and they just thought that it was wonderful. And they thought that it was wonderful to be recognized, and that they were very glad to see the city like taking these initiatives and such. And the cards were not only filled out by the veterans that were here, but for weeks afterwards, you know, I was continuing to get phone calls, or people came in and brought cards in after, you know, I'm sorry, we couldn't make it to the event. I heard it was beautiful. And so it seems like there is definitely an interest in it.
Okay, all right, because their opinion would be the opinion I would put the most
Mhm.
weight on
Yeah, what do the veterans?
before we do anything.
I would
Um,
agree. And we have contact information for them. And so maybe we could come up with some sort of, you know, rough idea-ish, and then maybe pick out a survey or something like that, you know?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate. Just looking at these designs, I guess I'm underwhelmed by the tree. One of the things I find frustrating looking at war memorials, because I've visited a number of war memorials across the country, looking for names of relatives and so on.
Mhm.
And when they're not laid out in some type of organized fashion that helps you zero in on, you know, a particular battle or a particular war or names in alphabetical order
Order
or
or
something of that sort, I find it very frustrating. So I don't know how you would do that with that tree design. Councilmember Kranz mentioned the American flag, which it looks like something there you could do something in a little bit more organized fashion, but something that helps people look for, oh, there's Uncle Bob, or there's Aunt Mary, you know, who served in the Air
Maybe even
Force.
by years, you know,
Yeah.
have like kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something along those lines, I think is very
Yeah.
important.
Yes, I would agree with that. I know the city of Manchester, they do the memorial bricks in their Veterans Memorial area, and they actually send you like a photograph of where the brick is, and then I don't know if they've kept it up to date, but they had on their website, you could go find where it was at, like visually, like in the park.
It's
And that
extensive
was-
work
that was
for our
cute.
city.
Yeah, I think that's important, you know, for them to be able to locate that
Uh-huh.
relative, friend, loved one, you know,
Mhm.
what have you. And I guess too, I would be disappointed if something like this precluded us from doing something more formal outdoors at some point in time so that people could visit 24/7, 365 days a year.
Yes, and that's it, is that this, again, it's a low enough expense, especially if we manage to get some funding for it, that I don't think that it would be an issue. It would just be a more immediate thing. And again, a lot of the outdoor Veterans Memorial don't have the individual recognition on the memorial because they're hard to keep up with, and the maintenance and stuff like that. And so having that component of it indoors, I feel would help.
Have the outdoor one be more of a generalized one.
Yeah.
than The indoor one where you keep it.
You might not necessarily list the names outdoors, it may be
Correct.
just the services and
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
flags and some
Yeah.
things of that
Mhm.
nature.
Yeah, they're generally, I don't wanna say generic, 'cause that makes it sound,
Right.
but like they're generally all encompassing.
We
Yeah.
could look at, once we get our village green in place, maybe
Yeah,
there'll be a nice
We
place
can
to do
always
that.
find an area to do that. Councilman Mabry?
Yes, thanks. The first thing would be to request that you have the motion maker restate the motion, or what you understand the motion to be.
The motion, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, is that we're authorizing Melanie and the department to move forward with exploring additional options and pricing for
Costs and designs,
Costs and
yeah,
design and
that's
what it
really
might
the
look
thing,
like
but
to implement.
I would also suggest maybe de-emphasize the individual component in favor of memorializing, you know, first responders, you know, each and every service and so on and so forth. And the reason I'm saying that, Melanie, is because I know Colonel Jaxie I harangued him, his wife, and his son, and his father, everybody for those banners, because I thought they should, I mean, he's a third generation Air Force guy. His son's in the Air Force now, and but they are such humble people that they didn't want to draw attention to their photo on the banner. And so there's gonna be a lot of folks like that, and if we take out the humble people, we're gonna have a very sparsely populated tree or flag or whatever it is with the names. And so if it's a memorial for first responders and military folks, maybe there's little sections where Korean War veterans, this and that, we can figure it out. But my point is, we really need someone's assistance to design it in a manner that we think works for our population. So that's the intent of the motion, Bob.
Okay, then the question has been answered by Rob, in that it clarifies for me what I think we're driving at is to allow Ms. Ribito to make the quickest ground, the fastest for our purposes of making a recommendation with the council, and the cheapest and expense of her time in being able to weed out the things that we're not looking for the department to expend its energies and time and exploring prices for everything under the sun. So if the understanding is that we're doing something outside later, not now, don't worry about that right now, put that off a year. Now you got that plate cleared. The next is, don't worry about squares or circles or flags or trees. You're just going after the aspects of the design of something inside as opposed to outside. That helps too, I think. Then it's, yeah, you include the first responders with the live and dead soldiers, or you don't. But that's not something you gotta focus
Yeah,
on.
we don't need those details.
It's the stuff that you'd like us to have you released to focus on instead of us telling you how many things we want you to do. Because that, you got a full plate with even half the stuff you got contend with in the next month.
We're looking for costs right now, costs in general.
That was kind of it. And a lot of the cost is gonna be based on the type of materials and how large it is. And so if I can just get basic costs associated with that, but I will have to give these sign
You
companies.
gotta get designed to get.
I've got to give them, right, I've got to give them some direction when it comes to that. But that being said, I can look into the cost of how much it would do for like a personalized wallpaper. And then if we had some sort of personalized wallpaper, we could just do something, with the clear glass tiles and whatnot. And so,
Councilmember Gadwell?
That's
Yeah.
it.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
Can we put anything on those sound walls? Or is that not possible? I know you can cover those with material, but if we put little metal insignias and everything all over them, is that going to cause a problem? That's one thing we need to find out. And then number two, if that doesn't work, can we use this back wall here instead? Just a couple of options.
so I think that those are excellent things to look into as well. Generally, when it comes to these signs, it's not a bunch of little holes in it. It's hanging up like a placard and then it has, you like can take the little placards off of it. But it's a big sign that has the little attachments, so it would be affixed
Right.
and
But if you're putting a big sign up, you're
Mhm.
negating the sound.
exactly. And so we would
Reduction.
definitely have to look into that.
So that's the only reason I'm bringing it up.
Absolutely.
Sound walls in the hallway?
In the hallway, as you're walking down,
Uh-huh.
there are huge pieces of, I'm not sure if I
don't-
want to call
I
it
never
part of
noticed.
it,
Yeah, I
particle
didn't
board
know,
or something
yeah.
like that, that are covered
I
in
yell that time
fabric.
I'm walking in.
Mhm.
But I do think we use this back wall for far too many other purposes, and I think the hallway is the place to do it if we can.
If
get
we
around
can
the
do it
sound.
without
Yeah, yeah,
damaging
yeah.
the sound walls that we paid $150,000 for.
Why did we do that?
Why did we do that? Well, when we first got in here, you guys weren't here, but anybody that was standing in the hallway that coughed or sneezed, it would echo up and down and up and down and up and down, go into the chambers. So
Got
it
it.
was pretty bad.
Councilmember Rattenberg?
I guess just a quick question here. Maybe I'm going a little bit against the grain with this suggestion, but would we be better off putting something like this out here on this wall? Are we just looking for something to cover this wall over here? Or are we looking to put this at a place where the maximum number of people will
can
see it when they come into City Hall?
Mhm.
So,
That would be the place.
And I guess I didn't mean to slight, using this wall
no,
over here,
absolutely.
but
We had that kind of thought too, and if it wouldn't work over here, then it is something that we could look into. But we use the lobby out there, for our art displays, for the plein air event, for,
We have
various.
lots of walls
Yeah,
upstairs and downstairs.
it's true. And so things can be rearranged, it was just one of those things in which we had this giant empty space and we had these areas here that we already hang art on and use for various things. But
I
yes, no,
understand,
it
I
is
just don't
not,
know if it'll work or not.
yeah. It just also gave more wall space than like just that back wall there.
I guess I think of the people that come in here all through the week, whether it's to pay a fine or they've got other business with the city. People that are coming into City Hall sometimes when we have different events and, everybody that comes in is going to see it back here.
Mhm.
They're not necessarily gonna see it over here.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that it's.
So I guess
definitely
just explore
the
that wall,
options.
these walls and costs and everything. So we've got a motion from Rob. Do we have a second? Okay, Mr. Mabry, Councilmember Mabry seconding that. All right.
Absolutely.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? All right,
Thank you.
awesome. Last on planning matters is the recent development trends. Anybody have any questions on that for the department? Seeing none, we'll move on to parks matters. We've got 5 items ready for considerations. You got 5 minutes for all 5. And we'll start with the Village Green, Director Rudich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I will not delve into some of the lesser updates. I would like to first tackle the change order for the undergrounding of the electrical lines that share a common boundary between City Hall site and the Village Green. As you can see, the change order is at $190,000. $70,000+ of that amount would go to Ameren, Missouri to eventually take the lines that are overhead now and pull them through the duct bank that would be installed by a private contractor under the guidance of our general contractor, Bombshell Construction. That amount is roughly $110,000. A lot of investigation has gone into this matter at this stage. It has included our city administrator, Thomas Lee, our city attorney, John Young, and many members of our city staff here relative to trying to find how all this happened. All things kind of point either to the engineering firm or the utility. And again, our city attorney is working through the final documents that have been provided to him over the course of the last month. Tonight, we with you that we have a project that is on hold primarily to weather and ground conditions. But eventually, we'll be in a position to move forward, and according to the general contractor, Bombshell Construction, the undergrounding of the utility lines is holding up the project for all its purposes. I believe $190,000 is too much to ask you for. But tonight, conversation with Mr. Lee, you're actually talking about leaving them overhead.
Oh,
We can work around them for the most part. Talked with Ken Keitel at TerraSpec, who's kind of assisting on some of these finer points. He thinks that from the standpoint of access to the stage area, it's workable. And so from the perspective of the department, there'll be some cost. Because obviously we have to redesign the areas that would have been parking and landscaping to accommodate the poles being retained. So there will be some cost, but obviously not a cost of $190,000. So tonight the department is presenting to you that option.
You're looking for us to give you direction on pursuing that option or sticking with it?
Authorizing the change order with the acknowledgement that the city attorney is working on an approach to.
Responsibility.
which will be 5 years, but to get the money from the engineering firm.
If, right?
Mr.
I'll
Lee,
go to, I was just gonna make a comment to that. My opinion is we've gone this far with Village Green, and while it's frustrating and sucks, and somebody should end up being held accountable for it outside of us, since we paid a consultant to look out for us and the contractor bid it. I think we'll eventually in some legal capacity be vindicated, but I would hate to see us permanently negate putting the conduit and the utilities underground as was originally planned and as would make a dramatically different final product.
And if
For
we
this,
decide
this is
to
the
do
crown jewel of the city, and with, what is it, 18 million we got in reserve or whatever, if we gotta pull 190 grand out of that, I'd say we do it all day long
I'm with Mike.
for something like this.
Yeah.
Scott?
I guess I'm probably thinking along the same lines you are, Chair. $190,000. Where could we get that money? I mean, is there some readily apparent section of the budget where we might be able to take that money without us impacting some other vital thing that the city needs to be done?
I looked at the capital improvements program for this year, 2025. We have about $25,000 in property acquisitions. We don't have anything, obviously, in front of us. So that potentially could be part of it. We have about $35,000 in design and engineering for Bellevue Farms. Obviously, I will disappoint Friends of Bellevue, but that could be shifted over. So we're at $60,000. And we do have money set aside for Portner Park. It's about $50,000 for the design and engineering, Portner Park. And so obviously we could maybe split that. So we're up to about $85,000. So there are a few things we can juggle. Most of the park projects relate to the Old State Road Shared Use Path and the Green Pines Trail that will connect the villages of Brightly to Green Pines Park and then further on to Community Park. So some of those are my projects.
Just another additional idea. There is $1.8 million budgeted for the all-inclusive playground in 2025. So in this case, if we were willing to take a look at maybe scaling back the footprint of the all-inclusive playground, still recognizing that it would be, there is one consideration that it is tied to grant funding. And I could double check. I think it was around the 1 point. There was a certain match we had to provide, but that is something, if we could limit the footprint of the all-inclusive playground, we could potentially utilize that to ensure that these utilities underground it. I do commend Joe, and something we want to do as a city is obviously look to tighten the belt a bit all around. That being said, with the Village Green being just a personal opinion from the Department of Administration, with it being such a vital asset to our community, what's going to be the centerpiece, especially if we can get Main Street done, it will affect the aesthetic, and we are halfway through construction at this point. So just want to mention the importance. And one thing is, I know we really are excited about the all-inclusive playground as well, but maybe there's something we can reduce from that plan and speak with our consultant there to be able to kind of match, still have an amazing project at the end of the day, but make it work.
Yeah, so there's no appetite for having those lines overhead because they'll be so prominent. And so Tom's suggestion, that's a lifeline. I think we could probably find $250,000 piece of the accessible play equipment that we can just defer for a year and cover this, and then rejigger the budget and so on and so forth. So I don't think it's a matter of scaling back the playground, putting in the infrastructure, and just, there's probably some fancy swing set or something like that we can save the money, particularly if you can cover half of it out of other budgetary items. So I suggest we go that route, and then we don't have to tap into, I personally think we ought to tap into the dang funds because we got too much. But
And it's such a small amount.
yeah, it's such a small amount. So I'm comfortable with either way, and I don't want to make a motion because I want to see what everybody else thinks.
Katie?
I'd like to make a motion that we go into our special funds over here to pull the dollars needed to complete this process, and get this park done.
I mean, we're basically borrowing against ourselves because the
Yeah.
premise here is not that it's 190 more that we just have to eat. We're basically, we need 190 to do what we need to do. We're pretty
Today.
confident that somebody else made a mistake
Yeah.
that caused this to happen, but we don't want to permanently negatively impact our whole project because somebody made a mistake that we feel will be reimbursed for in the future. Even if we were gonna have to eat the 190 permanently, I would say take it out of the reserve, it makes sense.
Yes.
But in this case, we're most likely gonna be fully reimbursed for it, whether it's in 2 years or 5 years or whenever the legal process finishes, but you know,
Well, I don't know.
I mean, when you've got the contractor that bid it and you've got a consultant that we paid to oversee the contractor bidding it and look, I mean, that's like hiring an attorney to
Yeah.
represent you and then you find out that you didn't follow the right process. So I mean,
I have had many conversations and we paid $250,000 to
Yeah.
an engineering firm to get it right.
right, we
So
could have
I'll
not
second.
paid them and we'd have our 190 and then some.
I'll second Katie's motion here.
He hired a.
The motion is that we,
Assist us.
the motion is that we pull from reserve funds to do the task at hand so that we complete all the components of the city
As was planned.
as was planned.
And this is,
And
and this is without impacting like our playground project or
Not
any of the
without-
other.
Or the other stuff.
without
Okay, perfect.
impacting
changing
any of the other stuff,
Alright.
we
Sorry.
use our savings to do something just like I would at home. If the heater went out, I'd go dig in the savings.
And Joe, if you could find 80 grand and we only need to tap into 110 from the reserve, then that's fine.
But that makes him, that shorts him, that potentially shorts him throughout, he's got less, he can't do as much moving and shaking, which he does like a master.
Yeah.
If we take out all his
Or
little
we can
slushy.
Take it all out, or maybe we just pay for it and do it, and then at the end of the year,
Right.
if we've got left over, we
Yep,
can replenish it.
Yep. So I second Katie's motion.
Do you have some-
I was tilting toward abstaining, but I'm gonna vote for it because we're voting on the motion. We're not voting on anything else.
So right now, we do have a motion from Katie, but we don't have a second.
I second
Oh,
it.
second, okay, so Rob's second. So, any further discussion on the motion?
No.
All right.
Tom, is that feasible?
Yes, it is feasible. Yes, we do have the excess funds to cover it. That said, it is something maybe we can find some additional efficiencies within the playground, but still keeping that same model. That'll be something we'll have to talk with unlimited play, but it can be done. That said, it would be diving a little bit deeper in our reserves with our capital improvement project, our capital improvement sales tax fund already. We have projects pretty much well positioned over this year, the next year in 2027. They're pretty much locked up tight and adding I wanted to speak on the turkey track item, but obviously that is not being discussed at this moment. But with especially looking at the community college and some of the improvements that may be needed at that junction, especially, eventually we will most likely need to look at extending generations over to Manchester. I think we just need to be very cognizant, but that being said, with the Village Green being so important, this is one of those cases where you just, you want to make sure it looks beautiful for our residents and it becomes that focal point. We don't want to have one saying it's a beautiful project and then, due to an error on our consultant's part or alleged issue with a consultant, that be the reason why, a resident points out, oh, this is lovely, but, the overhead wiring doesn't look too great. But I do appreciate Mr. Vunich's efforts here to try to figure out a way to make sure this could produce some cost savings.
Those are always good.
And this doesn't have to go in the motion, but I'm also gonna request that for the all-inclusive playground, I think for any events that the city has, we need to set up some kind of a donation fund for that playground equipment so that anybody that's coming to any event, I've talked to a lot of people who would be willing to donate funds to that playground, but they don't know how to do it. They don't know which way they can do it. And so if we could start doing those kinds of things, we've got 35,000 plus residents. If everybody pitched in $5 even, that goes a long way.
QR code and Venmo or something
Yeah,
like
a
that, yeah.
QR
Get the address, Councilmember Krantz will personally go collect.
He said you'll personally go to collect if you
Oh,
don't do
okay,
that.
yeah, well, whatever it takes,
You
you
have-
know.
Uh,
All in.
all right, so we've got a motion, we've got a second. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right,
Thank you very much.
cool. Make this thing continue happening. All right, so second on the Parks Matters is a senior programming proposal with the Wildwood Family YMCA.
This will be very brief, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, we received an answer from Community Development at St. Louis County late this afternoon. And a subsidized membership at the Wildwood Family YMCA is now covered under the Community Development Block Grant rules. So there is no need for any action tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So that takes us to the next item, which is the Wildwood Farmers Market. Agreement for market manager for the 2025 season, Ms. Ripto.
Hi, thank you very much, and I will also be very brief about this. You all are familiar with our farmers market. Miss Natalie McAvoy has been our market manager since 2018, and since then, it has been some of our most successful years. She's done a fabulous job, and if you know her, she's also a joy to work with. Continues to go above and beyond. You know, we now have a holiday market in November, and this past year, she even recruited a bunch of the participants in the farmers market, a bunch of the vendors for our tree lighting. And yeah, she's just been fabulous. We keep adding more onto her list of things to do. And we asked her if she would be interested in continuing on with us in 2025, and she would. And for the same compensation she's received for at least as long as I've been here. I'm not sure how long it's been going back, but it's 18,000. So same as 2024, 2023. But yes, and then an additional 2,000 for incidental costs, and then her membership to the Missouri Farmers Market Association and Agri-Missouri. The vendor fees will continue to be at the discretion of our market manager. And so that being said, the department feels very strongly that 2025 will be another successful year if we continue using Ms. McAvoy as our market manager.
Councilmember Krantz?
I see there's discretionary, what's she got, $1,000 for discretionary use? I would like to suggest, I like the music down there, and if they would pay $50, and the individual works off tips, but there should be a little bit there for the whoever she wants to play down there, because I think it enhances the farmers market. And I see other farmers markets, they always have musicians playing, so I'd like to stipulate that maybe she ought to look at that within her discretionary budget, if there's enough there.
Just so I can kind of give you some background, the $18,000 is the stipend that we provide to Ms. McAvoy to manage the market throughout the season. The $1,000 that Ripito mentioned, part of that goes to her membership for the different farmers market associations, and then just in discretionary funds in case she needs something that we don't anticipate after all these years. $1,000 remains, and that's for the city in case we need to buy something, a tent, a table, whatever it may be. Certainly, we can put that toward the music. The situation with the music last year was unfortunate. I was contacted by a former city council member. Her son did play music. I put the two together thinking that they would work out an arrangement. Come to find out, he wasn't getting paid. And so that was unfortunate. I had a conversation with the market manager. So make a long story short, I think music is a reasonable request, and certainly whoever provides it needs to be compensated.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask if we could try again to get more actual truck farmers at the farmers market, because you can only find tomatoes at one place, sometimes two. And I would like more options there. It's a farmer's market after all, not a jewelry maker's market. And it's successful and a lot of people there, but I really would like to see a couple more farmers if that's possible.
We will definitely mention it too. I think part of the problem is the lack of applications from said farmers.
Yeah, no, I know, it's a tough nut to crack, but I'm just making that request again.
Yes, no, absolutely. Understandable.
So do you need action from us?
We are looking for a motion to move forward with continuing on with Ms. McAvoy.
Yeah, is this gonna be approved at the next council meeting?
Have it at
Yes.
the.
I would like to meet her. Could she, if she's available, could she show up and just
Sure.
introduce herself? I'd just like to say hello to
We'll
her.
invite her to the February meeting if she's unavailable. We'll
Okay.
hold off and wait till March.
Okay, we have a
Thank you.
motion. Councilor Rottenberg?
Yeah.
Councilmember Dodwell with the second. All right. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, perfect.
Well, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I know you guys took us over the mark by a minute so far. We've got Wildwood Recreation Programming, update on current and future offerings and the facility reservations. Any questions? from the department? All right, seeing none. No executive session, if you're not ready for action. Can we take any of those off of there, Joe?
I will take a hard look, but I think most of them need to
They're all
stay.
pretty much, okay. I just thought maybe we need to clean anything up for the new year. All right, well, no other items. Yeah.
One thing about that, unlimited play, Ms. McAvoy and her team will be at the February meeting with the revised design.
Awesome.
That was gonna
Perfect.
be my question.
Councilor
I
Randall?
just have an additional item, actually two. Joe, are we continuing to move forward with the lighting request from the school?
Yes.
Okay, good, good enough. Yeah, you're doing it, so that's all I wanted.
Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a work session in March because they asked us to do some additional research.
Okay.
Find some examples, talk to other communities, and then find an expert on these signs so that they could come and speak, whether it's him or her.
Okay, so
We have
that,
a little we have some front end work to do before we can get to the work session.
have you made any progress on the bushwhack and the new trail at Bluffview?
Bluff View.
Yeah, remember they made somebody sent a complaint with all the flags.
It was one of the few times, maybe the only time, Gateway Off-Road cyclists did not contact us about a potential new trail. And it brought the attention of the residents.
Oh, so they were just
They were
going off on
laying
their
out
own?
A potential trail. We contacted them and told them, don't do anything. We don't want a trail there. We want to keep a buffer between our park facility and the residents. And they said, fine, we're sorry. We've just slipped our mind to contact them. So it's all done.
Okay, good. These folks don't know.
I have one thing I wanted to bring up under miscellaneous. I've talked to, and I know this was something that we've talked about in the past and previous council members were not in favor of it. And perhaps even the mayor, I'm not sure if I remember, but I've been approached by numerous residents, especially here in Ward 8, regarding, and I don't know if this come under planning and parks, but to look into the possibility of allowing, like side-by-sides or golf cart in the town center area and coming into downtown area. There's a lot of other municipalities around St. Charles and even parts of St. Louis County that allow it. And I mean, the people that I've talked to, and I'm just bringing this up because they've come to me on it, that we could have it to where you have to have a valid driver's license, so to where you wouldn't have teenagers or younger folks driving these things around. But it could potentially facilitate additional people coming to town center and to this downtown area for, restaurants and businesses. So I just thought I'd bring it up as a point to, I don't know even if this is the right platform, but City Administrator Lee?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on it. This is something that does come up from time to time, and it's something I've looked into a little bit, speaking with the captain of our police force. One issue that does come up is there's a legal requirement, if it is a vehicle within St. Louis County, that specifically in St. Louis County, that any motorized vehicle side by side or golf cart would have to be licensed. So in that case, it's something that we could definitely look into, but say you're the resident that would like to, purchase a nicer golf cart to roll around the town center, go over where you may be. They would have to actually go out and get that thing licensed, which is a little bit of a tedious task. It's not something that most people would like to do. Some people might do it. That said, though, they would need to just abide by all traffic rules. But that is something I could speak with our captain about a little bit more and maybe have him present a report to the city council for full review if that's something the council would wish, the committee would wish.
Yeah, I thought I'd ask. I doubt there's many people that would want to get a golf cart or a side-by-side license that they don't normally have to, because that involves property taxes and licensing fees that nobody's gonna wanna probably go out of their way for, but yeah, I mean, that's a good point though, because I know like out in Cottleville, they have them all over the place, but I guess that's St. Charles County, so perhaps.
That's exactly it. So, and that's an interesting point you bring up. So in St. Louis County, that's where we have it's more of a county ordinance, and then cities obviously have to abide by the county. It can't supersede. But in St. Charles County, they do allow it without you just have to be a valid driver over the age of 16 with a valid driver's license. So it's a little bit more lenient out in the Wild West.
It's an easy answer. All right, cool. I figured I'd bring that up since we were already over time. Just looking for something to delay us further. All right. Anyway, so our next meeting will be Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. So with any other miscellaneous, Councilmember Onberg?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
All right. We got a second. Councilmember Dodwell. All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.